physiological reactions offers a compelling perspective on its transformative power, transcending rational analysis and engaging deeply with our inner experiences. In this presentation, I will examine the music theoretical underpinnings of music's role in emotional induction, addressing pivotal questions. Are musical expressed emotions universal, or are they shaped by stylistic and cultural frameworks? Drawing upon perspectives such as Davies' assertion that musical understanding often emerges from unreflective exposure to a given idiom, I will explore how familiarity with genre, style, and context facilitates the emotional engagement of listeners. This discussion will also interrogate the dependency of emotional expression on style and historical contexts, concluding with reflections on challenges such as subjectivity, the integration of scientific methodologies, and the need for cross-cultural research. Through this exploration, I aim to contribute to a nuanced understanding of the intersection between music, emotion, and cultural context, advancing discourse within this field. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to engaging in this exploration together and also for your questions. So, music exists in every known human culture. It accompanies human activities from birth to death and has been doing so for a very long time. The oldest song that has survived to the present day is approximately 3,004 years old. However, music is even older than that. The oldest musical instruments discovered date back around 40,000 years. This means that music is older than agriculture, writing, and money. We still don't know for certain whether humans possess an evolved capacity specifically for creating music, or whether musical activities actually utilize abilities that have different origins and purposes. However, evidence that music is an ancient, universal phenomenon involving specialized brain structures suggests that music is part of our biological makeup, as Levitin stated. What we do know is that in both primitive cultures and modern societies, considerable time is devoted to singing, music, and dance. It's not just time either. According to musicologist David Huron, people in North America spend more money on music than on prescription of drugs. What drives us to engage with music? There is no simple answer to this question because the reasons are many and varied. They may also change depending on historical and cultural background. There are a number of theories regarding the possible origins and functions of music. Music may have initially served a purpose in parent-child bonding, maybe language acquisition, work coordination, transmission of cultural knowledge, sexual courtship, or social cohesion. All theories regarding the origin of music are, of course, speculative. Therefore, Eckhart Altenmüller's, Reinhard Koppias, and Oliver Greaves suggest that, from a scientific perspective, answering the question of the origin of music is difficult, if not impossible. In all these reflections on music, there is a theme that runs like a thread: emotion. Whether we turn to music for entertainment, healing, self-expression, or aesthetic experience, emotion always forms a common denominator.
Özür dilerim. Başka slide var mı diye bir soru geldi de yan taraftan. Slide tekte kaldı herhalde ilk slide'da. Slide'ınız var mıydı yoksa bu ilk slide'da mı kaldı?
Yok, vardı.
Tek ilk baştaki slide'da kaldı. Evet. Devam ediyor şimdi.
Şu an devam ediyor mu?
Evet. Şu anda kaçıncı sayfadayız bilmiyorum.
Life on Earth yazması lazım.
Doğru sayfadayız şu anda. İlk baştaki sayfada takılı kalmıştı. Şimdi geldi. Thank you, Violetta.
Yeah. In all these reflections on music, there is a theme that runs like a thread: emotion. Whether we turn to music for entertainment, healing, self-expression, or aesthetic experience, emotion always forms a common denominator. Therefore, questions about music and emotion lie at the heart of why we listen to music. This occupies a central place in terms of how music affects us and how we affect music, how we compose and perform it. So, until now, especially after 1960, there has been a lot of developments and evolvements about music and emotion and power of music, especially on emotion induction. There has been some themes. I would like to mention those themes as well. So theme one is emotions depend on evolved mechanisms. What we mean here is the first premise is that in order to understand the emotional response to music, we must adopt an evolutionary perspective. Consider the timeline shown in first figure. Life on Earth began approximately 4.5 billion years ago. Mammals began to develop about 200 million years ago. The Neanderthals began to roam the earth around 500,000 years ago. Modern humans, or Homo sapiens, appeared around 200,000 years ago. As already explained, music making has been part of the human behavioral repertoire for roughly 40,000 years. However, many emotional mechanisms evolved well before music appeared on the earth. Emotions involve all parts of the brain partly shared with many other species, in particular mammals, which began to develop 200 million years ago. Therefore, chances are slim that our ancient emotional mechanisms evolved to handle the intricacies of driving in New York City, surfing the dark web, or fiddling with the knobs of the Moog synthesizer. What this means is that human music making most likely evolved on the foundation of existing emotional mechanisms with a longer evolutionary history. Although uses of music are influenced by social conventions that developed over many centuries, they are also constrained by psychological mechanisms. A second premise is that there is no single psychological mechanisms that can explain all our emotional reactions to music. The premise follows, in a sense, naturally from the first. An evolutionary perspective suggests that the human brain and the body involve several instances of functional redundancy. That is, that different structures can serve a similar behavioral function. In nature, there are often multiple means to an end. Our emotions are no exception. There are multiple pathways from events to emotions. Another premise is there are definitive limits to human introspection. The experiences that music creates belong at center stage in a book on musical emotions. Yet, the reflective, conscious experience of the world that we tend to take more or less for granted in a novel development seem from an evolutionary perspective. It coincided with the vast expansion of the part of the human brain most recently developed, the neocortex, proposed by Stritter in 2005. Note, however, that this top layer of the brain is partly independent of many older and more primitive brain circuits associated with emotion and largely shared with other species. The human species is fundamentally a social one. It has been argued that the real secret behind the human dominance of the world is our ability to cooperate in large groups. Some researchers have speculated that the absolute brain size increased in Homo sapiens mainly because larger brains allowed for more sophisticated social interactions. We continually interact with other people, and our behavior is greatly influenced by the presence of others. Even when alone, we rely on social knowledge to make sense of our lives. Music is no different in this respect. Music is made by humans for humans. Most theories about the origins of music have a social element, work coordination, communication, courtship, and bonding. Music often serves social functions, for example, to enhance a listener's sense of cultural identity and social belonging, or to create an appropriate atmosphere during social ceremonies. A fourth premise, then, is that all responses to music occur in a complex interaction between the music, the listener, and the situation, as you see on the figure 2, second figure. As argued by the Norwegian researcher Harald
Hocam
Jorgensen,
slaytı değiştirmeyi unutma.
hocam halen oradayım. Halen Life on Earth'teyim. Şu an değişiyor mu?
Yok orada
Değişmiyor hocam.
Tamam, şu an değişti mi?
Değişmedi hocam.
Bir dakika hocam.
Şimdi değişti.
Değişti mi? Life on
Evet.
halen aynı yerdeyim bu arada.
Life on Earth yazıyor ama ekran şeyi değişti sanki. Rengi mi? Bir şeyler değişiyor.
Hmm. İstiyorsanız de hızlıca devam edeyim.
Buyurun hocam, devam.
Yeah. And a fourth premise then is that all responses to music occur in a complex interaction between the music, the listener, and the situation, as argued by the Norwegian researcher Harald Jorgensen. Each of these factors can influence your response. Consider some examples. For example, your experience may be affected by musical features such as tempo, rhythm, timing, melody, articulation, timbre, harmony, phrasing, instrumentation, texture, and genre. It may further be affected by individual features such as age, gender, personality, education, or music experience. Cultural background, psychological status such as mood, attention, or whether you are tired, it doesn't matter. And personality traits such as never mind. Finally, it may be social context affected by situational factors such as location, social context, other activities occurring at the same time, jogging like dancing, acoustic conditions, listening in headphones through loudspeakers, sound quality, and etc., or visual impressions such as performance gestures. One could argue that only, maybe half jokingly, that musicologists tend to focus only on the music, psychologists only on the listener, and sociologists only on the context. In reality, actually, all three factors influence our music experience immensely. Değişti mi şu an şey hocam?
Yok hocam, aynı slaytta devam ediyoruz.
Şu an
Şimdi değişti, evet.
tamam. As aligning with my title, a first step is to have a look, or this presentation is focused also at the musical features. Which are the relevant ones? How do they co-vary with specific emotion categories and dimensions? How are they modulated by musical style, culture, and historical context? It's a recurring notion from ancient Greece that there are systematic relationships between musical structure. By the way, when I say musical structure, I mean music theoretical, especially musical surface, and expression of emotions. Plato argues that the Lydian mode is intimate, tender, and complaining, whereas the Phrygian mode is ecstatic, passionate, and wild. Plato is so concerned about the emotional effects of certain modes that he thinks they should be censored in order to not influence an impressionable youth negatively. When these ratings were combined, as you see in the table, statistical analysis yielded strong correlations between expression marks and emotion terms, in particular for the basic emotions. Note, for example, the large correlations for furioso, angry, and dolce, tender. Yet, there were also correlations for more complex emotions such as cantabile, nostalgia, and maestoso, pride, and pride. These results may not be particularly surprising, considering that expression marks frequently feature reference to emotional and emotion characters, but the point is that when psychologists talk about basic emotions, they may well be referring to exactly the same expressive qualities as classical musicians consider in expression marks through their daily work. Just bear with me a second. Değişti mi? Is that changed now?
Evet.
Tamam. So far, most studies have analyzed only a few features, and the amount of study carried out on a specific feature is inversely related to the difficulty of quantifying it. Thus, most features in this table are rather simple. More complex features such as harmonic progression and musical form remain yet to be thoroughly investigated in psychological experiments. It should be acknowledged, however, that when more complex aspects have been studied, the results have sometimes been disappointing. For instance, attempts to test Derry Cook's theory about the meaning of specific melodic intervals, or to explore the effects of large-scale musical form, have generally failed to establish predictable tendencies. Similarly, the common view that certain musical cases, such as E major, are linked to specific emotions has been disproved by experiments by Rigg, Powell, and Beeben in 2005. It may well be that most of the weight of the expression process is actually carried by gross features such as overall tempo, pitch, and loudness, rather than more subtle aspects of the music. The latter aspects contribute to other aspects of the aesthetic value of the music, such as enhancing beauty. And the results in table represent at least part of the code used to express emotions in music, but needless to say, the mere application of these patterns of features won't by itself result in great music. It will result in music with a clearly perceptible emotional expression, but as noted from the outset, there is much more to music than just emotion. There is arguably a well-founded concern that too formulaic application of the feature patterns can result in stereotypical expression. The trick is to apply the feature in a creative manner that avoids too many expressive cliches. I would like to play some associated emotions with some of pieces, like examples. Just give me a second.
Fırat Hocam biraz toparlayabilir miyiz? Biraz sonra
Evet.
çünkü session geç kaldığı için keynote'umuzu bekletmek
Tamam.
zorunda kalıyoruz.
Şu an umarım ses geliyor mu?
Hocam
Ses
tekrar,
geliyor. Bilgisayardan ekstra bir ses mi açtınız?
Yok.
hocam paylaşırken tekrar yine o bilgisayar paylaştığı yapar mısın hocam tekrar? Ses
Şu an,
gelmiyor.
şu an sadece sizin sesinizi alabiliyoruz Fırat Hocam.
O zaman bir dakika.
Paylaşımı
Aynı.
kaldır hocam. Dur. Hı.
Sorry, by the way, there will be a slide of delay in next session. We apologize for the delay because the K speaker is waiting for this after this session. Thank you.
By the way, this is for the happiness emotion categories by the Schubert piano quintet in an A major. And then this is the third movement, scherzo. I would like to play another category in sadness, which is gonna be on Piotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky's Symphony Number 6 in B minor, the last final movement. And another example from anger. This was from Shostakovich, and now Fear. From Shostakovich, String Quartet, number 8, and then Tenderness. I don't want to take too much time. So, does the slide change?
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
I have now considered a number of links between musical features and emotion categories or dimensions, as you see from previous table. Are these musical emotions invariant across different cultures? Still, the question is difficult to answer in a simple manner because there are both similarities and differences across cultures depending on the focus and level of analysis. There is a common notion that music is a universal language that can be understood across every culture. While it's true that we can hear all types of music and we can potentially even enjoy most of the music, it is debatable whether we understand all music in quite the same way. That may, of course, be true even within cultures. We could probably argue all day about what it means to understand music, but there are definitely some occasions when an understanding is clearly in doubt. Just to give you some idea of how difficult it may be to assess music from a different culture, I will recount an amusing incident from George Harrison's benefit concert in Bangladesh in 1971. Harrison was very fond of Indian music and invited his friend and also his teacher, sitar virtuoso Ravi Shankar, to open the concert at the opening for the concert. At the opening of Shankar's section, he and his fellow musicians play selected notes for a minute or two, after which the Western audience hesitantly starts to applaud, to which Shankar says, "Thank you. If you enjoyed the tuning so much, I hope you will enjoy the music even more." As philosopher Stephen Davis explains, there is certain condition that needs to be fulfilled in order for a listener to grasp the emotional expression of a piece of music, namely that the person is a qualified listener. This may sound elitist maybe, but Davis has something far more fundamental in mind. So, the extent of cross-cultural specificity further depends on the precise features considered. Some aspects of music, for example, tonality, melody, and harmony, are relatively more culture-specific, whereas other aspects are more culture-independent. This is nicely illustrated in the so-called Q redundancy model proposed by Laura Lee Boltwell and Bill Thompson in 1999. In short, the model shows that when we are confronted with an unfamiliar culture, there are both psychophysical cues that are universal and overlap between the two musical systems, and culture-specific cues that are not shared by the two cultures. Emotion recognition will be possible to the extent that the culture overlapping part of the cues is not too small. With this model in place, let us now consider some evidence. Early studies didn't offer any definitive evidence, except perhaps of the difficulties in conducting cross-cultural research. A telling example is a study by Mori in 1940, who used gramophone to play 5 pieces of classical music chosen to express fear, reverence, rage, love, and no particular emotion to Loma villagers in Zelia, native West Africans. He asked them about the expression suggested to them by the pieces. 9 participants left without answering nothing. We might speculate that they found either the task or the music strange or incomprehensible. The answers provided by the remaining participants showed little correspondence to the intended emotions. Subsequent studies have provided mixed results, partly dependent on the type of music used. By selecting pieces that are perceived as expressive of emotion via simple features such as tempo, loudness, and timbre. What Thompson and Boltwell referred to as psychophysical cues, you may find a fair level of cross-cultural agreement, as in the meta-analysis of music performance studies conducted by Jocelyn and Locke in 2003. On the other hand, by selecting pieces whose expression derives mainly from more complex and arguably culture-specific features of the composition, such as harmony, you will observe a larger in-group advantage. What I am trying to convey here is that without a representative sample of pieces, maybe a taller order indeed. You could quite easily support either position, cross-cultural invariance or diversity, simply depending on how you select the music. This shows why it is so difficult to provide a straight answer to the question of whether emotions expressed in music are universal or not. It actually depends. One view, however, can most definitely be ruled out by now, namely the notion that musical expression of emotion is determined only by cultural influences and culturation. If expression and perception of emotion were determined only by culture, then we would expect to find that listeners are completely unable to recognize emotions in music from a foreign culture. This is not the case. Instead, current evidence indicates that there is cross-cultural recognition of basic emotions in music. It appears safe to conclude that emotional expression in music involves both universal and culture-specific aspects. This is what we would expect from the different types of coding involved. One can speculate about the reasons for cross-cultural differences in the types of music people play and listen to. These include a complex set of factors such as climate, social organization, technological development, and history. Regardless of their origin, one may conceptualize the cross-cultural differences in perceived emotional expression as a special case of a more general principle which applies also within cultures, namely the dependence on musical style. So I don't want to take too much time, but I would like to mention shortly. The short answer is, of course, yes. How could it not be? Emotional expression is dependent on musical features, and certain features are characteristics of particular styles. Speed metal, fast tempo, romantic piano music, rubato, blues, pentatonic scales, opera, wide vocal vibratos, baroque, terrace dynamics. To some extent, then, different styles must have different expressive characteristics. More plausibly, style will influence the finer details and nuances of the emotional expression. We can perhaps talk of expressive dialects of specific styles such that models of emotional expression in a particular genre won't map perfectly onto the models of a different genre, as suggested by Thomas Aurola in 2011. In addition, there may be certain conventions for expressing emotion which are associated with a particular style. So, is emotional expression dependent on historical context? We've seen expression and emotion have clearly changed considerably over time, as have the features of the music themselves. Again, I don't believe that the musical features summarized in table in slide 4 have changed. The changes over time are more plausibly a matter of degree and manner of
Diyorum ya.
implementation. Thus, for
Ay
instance,
Zoom meeting diyor.
Daniel Leach Wilkinson has observed that preferences for specific means of emphasis have changed. A prominent note in a score that in 1910 was emphasized by sliding up to it from the note below, in 1950 might have been emphasized by vibrating on it, and in 1990 by increasing and decreasing its amplitude. In other words, although the inclination to emphasize certain notes is constant over time, the specific means to achieve this may differ. In that sense, almost every aspect of performance style has changed over the past century. So, in conclusion, music theoretical foundations are the silent architects of our emotional experiences with music.
Sayın hocam, kısaca toparlayabilir miyiz?
Aynen. They guide how sound becomes an emotion bridging the gap between art and human connection. By understanding these principles, we can deepen our appreciation of music and harness its power across disciplines, from therapy to technology. So, for the future directions, subjectivity, integration with neuroscience, expanding cross-cultural research would definitely help understanding music theoretical foundation of music theoretical influence on music emotion induction. Thank you for your attention, and I welcome your questions and reflections.
Thank you. Any question?
Dear Violeta has a question.
Can I? Yes, I know that there is no much time for discussion, but this is a subject that very much interests me. So I think you will be so kind to speak with me after the conference about it. But shortly, do you know the book by Michael Spitzer?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. He is mentioned that there are two different theories which are opposing themselves. One is Huron expectation, and the other is appraisal theories.
Yeah, by Klaus Schreer.
Okay, so it is about at which moment we are conscious what kind of emotion it is we listen to, we recognize. What do you think? Is it like in this appraisal theories that we know it from the beginning, or just like Huron says, that moment later?
Yeah, so I would like to explain this in a different manner, because currently Coutinho and Schrerer also included musical expectancy into the appraisal theory. As you know, these especially music emotion theories is not static, is dynamic, and then therefore at some point I would argue that they will like overlap lots of talkings with or lots of like differences between each other. So for me, as a big fan of statistical learning and musical expectation, which is, I think this is also about the Coutinho's and Schreyer's explanations on music theory is, for me, pure psychologist approach. It just sometimes ignores the nature of the music themselves. But why I, for example, talking from my perspective, why I thinking that statistical learning, therefore musical expectancy, is a much broader category, which includes psychological perspectives and also musical perspective, because the thing is under the idea of statistical learning. So Mayer and then his student Huron argues that the emotional concept and then inference from music, emotional inference from music is based on the statistical learning. Mm-hmm. Therefore, music. So when you listen unconsciously, when you listen and then when you born into an ecological environment, ecosystem of music, also you create a kind of expectation which is directly tied with the music emotions and then your inferences. So for me, this explanation, how can I say, fulfill myself in terms of when I consider to the process. But I think if we talk about the formation of musical emotions and then how we perceive emotions from music, I would suggest, statistical learning, and therefore musical expectation is a very good explanation. But as I said before, probably maybe 20 years later, we will see that these two theories, as we will like align as we see in the schneller and continuous, and then now they accept that musical expectation is a mechanism for the emotion induction.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Thank you so much. Mr. Miloš.
Yeah, okay, that's really a huge topic. You're really taking the bull by the horns. One of the most intriguing things about emotional reaction to music. But what would be your take on this?
Yeah.
Again, question which was raised
Fırat
millions
hocam
of
özür
times so
dilerim.
far.
I'm so sorry. Sorry. Biraz kısaca cevaplayabilir miyiz evvel? Çünkü diğer
Tamam.
şey için, sunum için çok zamanımız kalmıyor. Keynote çünkü 12:45'te başlaması gerekiyordu.
Tamam.
Sorry, Miloš.
Miloš, sorry for the. Let me explain. So you know that we delayed too much. So I will like
Okay,
short.
never mind.
No.
I
will
abort
shortly.
the question.
Yeah,
It's
I will shortly answer this as I as a graduate from composition and music theory, as a graduate of composition and music theory student. So for me, we should delve into especially from the musical surface perspective, we should delve into the all structural parts of the music and then test it carefully and accountability, because as you know, as a music theorist and music analysts or composers always tends to interpret emotions or things about music hermeneutically, which especially contradicts with the current understanding, current scientific methods. So if we find to combine music structures with a really carefully designed and mathematically designed scientific designs, I would say that we will maybe come a bit closer what we know today. And then because I know that it is never gonna be because it is not a current question. Darwin asked this, Avicenna asked this question. So therefore I think this is a process where especially composers and music theorists should join these questioning.
okay. Thank you. I think that we need to move on. Really.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
would have so many other things to
Of course.
but okay, thank you.
Thank
I
you
will-
so much. Miss Kwanza have a question.
Yes, I have a question. So I agree with you that music emerged first because the first thing, because humans could not speak and they had fragmented speech and they used signals. Yeah, we know. But what you see, so early humans might have used music to create sense of safety or unity within their groups in the face of external threats like predators, animals, rival tribes. So during hunting, so these signals, yes. And the second musical activity, rituals and spirituality. So music likely played an important role in religious and spiritual practices and rituals, pagan rituals. They were afraid of forces of nature. In order to harmonize with nature, they performed rituals to overcome these dangerous forces of nature. So in any time, so hunting, fear of tribes, new tribes, fear of, for example, predators, animals, and fear of nature. So in any way, musical signals were used before music. And how do you think was the first emotion fear?
Probably, as we know that evolution from evolutionary psychology and also from neuroscience, there is called a term, especially in the by the Juslin and Soloboda in 2010, brainstem reflexes. So when you, if you want, you can try when you go a person's behind, and if you use a loudness, he or she will fear and then we'll give some reflexes. This is called brainstem reflexes, and then we now know that phylogenetically, all humankind have this kind of evolved mechanisms, especially in the loudness, therefore music. So I think, like as you said, probably fear, and then if we like connect it or tie it to the music, loudness, and the, for example, sforzando. And then when you hear a current like sforzando, you can like suddenly like reflect reflexes. So probably, yeah, fear might be a evolved mechanism and biological mechanism that we still carry out. And then, you know, composers, for example, Beethoven, use these. I just passed these examples due to time restrictions. I had different examples about the composing styles of Beethoven, which he used very cleverly and wisely. So yeah, I agree with you, I would say.
And maybe first signals have a great meaning, had a great meaning. So
Exactly.
all signals, all musical signals had a great meaning.
Exactly.
It was interesting to talk about this subject with Violetta, with dear Violetta. Yes, we talked about this in Gdansk.
Yeah, you are very welcome. You are very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If we can do it, dear participants, this session we have had a privileged listening of incredible insights, presentation, have touched upon various